Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my HOA Karen Tales channel? Thank you so much. Moving into a new neighborhood should be exciting. A fresh start, new surroundings, maybe even some friendly neighbors. But in my case, I was greeted with something entirely different. HOA Karen, the self-appointed ruler of the block. She had a clipboard, an attitude, and a mission to make my life miserable. From the moment I pulled into my driveway, it started small. The first morning in my new home, I woke up to find a violation notice taped to my door. Lawn not up to community standards. My lawn was brand new. It had been installed just a week prior and looked flawless. But that didn't stop Karen from citing me for grass that was supposedly half an inch too long. Then came the garbage bin complaints. Bins must be retrieved within 1 hour of collection time. I worked late and wasn't home when the trash was picked up. The next day, another violation. Then my mailbox was too modern for the neighborhood aesthetic. Another fine. It was never-ending. I tried reasoning with her, but Karen doesn't do reason. She does control. As far as she was concerned, I was a problem that needed to be dealt with. Things escalated fast. One evening, I was washing my car in my driveway when Karen strutted over, arms crossed, her face twisted in her signature disapproving scowl. "This is unacceptable," she snapped, pointing at the soapy water trickling toward the street. "You're violating HOA Regulation 5.7b, water waste and community aesthetic." I let out a short laugh. Community aesthetic? It's water, it'll dry. It disrupts the uniform look of the neighborhood. She huffed, looking genuinely offended by the concept of evaporation. "This is your final warning." I rolled my eyes and went back to washing my car, but Karen wasn't done. The next morning, I woke up to a pound on my door. When I opened it, 2 uniformed officers stood on my porch. "Sir, we receive a report about unauthorized construction on your property," one officer said. I frowned. Construction? Karen emerged from behind them, her arms crossed, her smug expression practically radiating victory. "He's been making illegal modifications to his driveway," she said sweetly. "That's against community policy and city code." I blinked. "You mean me washing my car?" The officer sighed. "Sir, can we take a look?" I waved them over to my completely normal driveway. No modifications, no construction, just a clean car and a very annoyed homeowner. The officers exchanged a look before turning back to Karen. "Ma'am, there's no violation here. This is a civil matter, not a police issue." Karen's smile faltered. "While he's still a disturbance to the neighborhood, he needs to be dealt with." The officer gave her a long, tired stare. "Ma'am, you can't call 911 for neighborhood disputes if there's no crime being committed. We can't do anything." Karen's face turned red. She wasn't used to being told no, and she definitely wasn't going to stop there. Over the next few days, Karen tried everything to get me in trouble. She called code enforcement claiming I had unpermitted structures in my yard. She was referring to a patio umbrella. Then she complained about my porch lights being too bright at night. When none of that worked, she went for the nuclear option. She called the cops again. This time, she tried to have me arrested, and that's where she really screwed up, because what she didn't know was that my brother is the county sheriff. I was watching TV when I heard a loud knock at the door. I opened it, and this time there was only one officer, and it was my brother. He stood there, arms crossed, shaking his head. "Dude, what the hell is going on? I've got Karen over there screaming about pressing charges." I let out a groan. "What now?" He sighed. "She claims you threatened her with aggressive eye contact." I burst out laughing. "You're joking." "I wish I was." My brother rubbed his temples. "She's demanding we take you in for intimidation and verbal assault." I crossed my arms, and he smirked. "And I told her to sit down before she gets charged with filing a false report." Karen, standing on her porch, must have realized who she was dealing with. Her face turned pale as she finally connected the dots. But it was too late for her now. She thought she could use the police to get rid of me. She didn't realize that she had just dug her own grave. Karen had spent years terrorizing this neighborhood, throwing around her so-called authority like a queen ruling over her subjects. But this time, she had messed with the wrong person, and now she had no idea just how badly she had screwed up. After my brother shut down her ridiculous complaint, I figured she'd crawl back in her lair for a while. I was wrong. Karen doubled down. If she couldn't get me arrested, she'd do the next best thing, turn the entire neighborhood against me. The very next morning, I woke up to an absolute storm in the neighborhood Facebook group. Karen had posted a long, dramatic rant about how I was a dangerous influence on the community and how I had threatened and harassed an HOA official. She demanded an emergency meeting to discuss appropriate disciplinary action against disruptive homeowners. I nearly spit out my coffee. This woman was absolutely unhinged. The emergency HOA meeting was held that evening. I decided to attend, mostly for the entertainment value. When I arrived, Karen was already at the front of the room, arms crossed, pacing back and forth like she was delivering a court case. "This neighborhood has rules," she barked. "And some people, newcomers who don't respect our way of life, think they could do whatever they want. We cannot allow such lawlessness." I raised a hand. "Are you referring to me?" Karen's eyes narrowed into slits. "We don't say names here," she snapped, as if that somehow made it less obvious. One of the board members sighed. "Karen, is this about the police call? Because I heard from Officer Daniels that there was no crime." Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. "That's not the point. The point is he's dangerous. He's disrespectful. Worst of all," she slammed a paper down on the table. "Hune's breaking rules left and right." I stepped forward, picking up the paper. "Karen, this is a blank violation form." Her face twitched. "That's not the point." Either the other residents weren't buying it. One by one, they started speaking up against her. "Actually, Karen, I got a violation for having my garden gnome too close to the sidewalk," one man muttered. "That was from you." "You fined me for my Halloween decorations," a woman added. "He reported my son's skateboard ramp." Another neighbor chimed in, saying it was an unapproved structure. Karen's face paled. "That's not relevant," she stammered. "We're talking about him." The board president cleared his throat. "Actually, we're talking about you. We've received multiple complaints about your behavior, Karen, and after recent events, we believe it's time to reconsider your role in the association." Karen froze. "Oh, what? You can't do that. I am the HOA." "No, Karen," the president said, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "You were that night." Karen was officially stripped of her position in the HOA. She was no longer allowed to issue violations, no longer permitted to enforce any rules, and judging by the look on her face, that was worse than any eviction. I wasn't done yet, because what Karen didn't know was my brother had one more surprise for her. A few days later, a police car pulled up in front of her house. My brother stepped out, a folder in hand. Karen stormed out of her house, her expression a mix of rage and paranoia. "What are you here for?" she hissed. Aaron, my brother, flipped open the folder. "We need to have a chat about filing false police reports." Her eyes bulged. "That's ridiculous." "I didn't," he cut her off. "You did twice, in fact. And after reviewing the situation, the department has decided to issue you an official warning. You file one more false report, you'll be looking at real legal consequences." Karen turned ghost white. She opened her mouth, but for once, no words came out. And that's when I knew for the first time in her life, Karen realized she wasn't in charge. Karen was done, or at least she should have been. But the thing about people like her is they don't know when to quit. After being stripped of her power and humiliated in front of the entire neighborhood, I thought she'd finally back off, maybe move out, find another community to terrorize. Nope. Instead, she doubled down again. The first sign was a letter in my mailbox. It wasn't an official HOA notice. Karen wasn't allowed to issue those anymore. But was a handwritten note filled with passive-aggressive rage. "You may have fooled the HOA, but you don't belong here. People like you ruin communities. You should do the right thing and leave before you regret it." It wasn't signed, but I knew exactly who had written it. A few days later, Karen upped the ante. I woke up to find my front yard trashed. Someone had knocked over my garbage cans, thrown toilet paper in my trees, and scattered what looked like dog food across my lawn. I checked my security footage, and there she was, Karen, sneaking onto my property at 2 in the morning, giggling like a teenager as she vandalized my yard. I shook my head, almost feeling bad for her, almost because the very next thing I did was send the footage to my brother. That evening, a patrol car rolled up to Karen's house. I stood on my porch, watching with barely contained amusement as my brother knocked on her door. She opened it, took one look at him, and tried to slam it shut. "Aaron," he said, sticking a foot in the door. "We need to talk." Again, she tried to play dumb at first, acting shocked and offended when he showed her the footage. "That's not me. That could be anyone," she shrieked. "Karen, you're wearing the same robe in the video that you're wearing right now," he pointed out. Silence. Then she did what Karens do best. She played the victim. "I was just trying to teach him a lesson. He doesn't belong here. He's ruining everything." My brother nodded. "Right. Well, now you're facing trespassing and vandalism charges. Want to keep talking?" She paled. "Wait, charges?" "Oh yeah," he said, smirking. "Turns out sneaking onto someone's property and causing damage is illegal. And since you've already been warned about filing false reports, let's just say you're out of second chances." By the end of the week, Karen was officially done. She wasn't arrested, but she was slapped with a hefty fine, a restraining order, and a final warning. If she so much as stepped on my property again, she was going to jail. And just like that, she finally broke. A few days later, a moving truck pulled up in front of her house. She was leaving. I watched from my porch as she sulked around, packing her things, refusing to meet my eyes. As her car finally pulled away, I couldn't help myself. "Safe travels, Karen," I called out. She flipped me off. Perfect. The neighborhood felt lighter after she left, happier. People actually started chatting outside again. Kids played in their yards without fear of violations, and the ridiculous constant drama was gone. I had won, and Karen learned the hard way that not even the HOA could save her from herself.